Part 7. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 61. Chapter 61. All fools know that a son is closer than a nephew. She finally figured out that her granddaughter's things were not conjured out of thin air. They should have been secretly taken from some magical place. The whole family ate and drank, and then found some seeds for their granddaughter to return. In this way, at least we won't make it difficult for our granddaughter to behave in front of the gods. Jian didn't know that grandma's guess was accurate. She was happy that the old lady was so loyal and solved her big problem. The family is busy with spring plowing, and she is not relaxed either. Grain must be grown in the fields, vegetables must be grown in the garden, and pigs, chickens, ducks, geese, and rabbits must be fed. These jobs added together are really not a small amount. It's hard for her to be a baby who has just learned to crawl. It is inevitable that she is busy day and night, and most of the time she is tired and sleeps. This actually makes Mrs. Lee praise her whenever she meets people. Her granddaughter is so worry-free, she knows she cares about her family, she never makes trouble, and she sleeps every day. Plowing at sunrise and resting at sunset. The whole family worked hard for half a month and finally planted 30 acres of land. 20 acres of sorghum, 10 acres of millet, and some beans in the corners of the land. In autumn, a few sacks are enough to quench Daking's hunger. At least I don't have to ask the villagers to replace the nuggets. Speaking of the soy cubes, the weather is getting hot, so Aunt Wu and second Aunt John came over and took away their own soy cubes. In each vegetable garden, choose a place with sunlight all day long. Buy a small pottery jar, break up the sauce cubes, and add a lot of salt. The mouth of the tank is covered with white linen cloth to keep out dust. Small stones are placed on the four corners of the linen cloth and red cloth strips are tied around it, so that the fermented miso will be delicious. From now on, harrowing will have to be done twice a day. It means gathering together the fermenting mold at the bottom of the tank and scooping it out completely. Of course, a broken basin is also indispensable as a lid. In case it rains, put a cover on it to prevent the rainwater from making the miso stink. Jian was carried on her back by her grandma and she learned the whole process. Finally, I just took the rake and didn't let go. I raked it with all my strength a few times before giving up. The Lee family took a rare break and slept hard until about 3 o'clock in the morning. Mrs. Lee took out a piece of meat from the well and took 2 cabbage, intending to make a cabbage and pork dumpling. Others just paid it back. Jian, who was as tanned as a loach, was already jumping up and down with joy. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru helped chop the stuffing and knead the dough. Li Laosi asked a few cabbage gang members to feed Daking. Li Laoer was cleaning up the house. After 2 days of spring plowing, the children in the village would come to class again. Jiaran will return to the college tomorrow and is also packing his luggage. Ji was eager to give it a try. After eating the dumplings, he planned to go to the agency and ask the master when he would go out to again. He was already ambitious. I want to go home when I'm outside, but I want to go out again when I'm home. While the whole family was busy, Mrs. Guo came to the door again. She had a smile on her face, but it was a shame that her face was full of anger. This smile was awkward and embarrassing, so it was better not to smile at all. Every member of the Li family saw it, but no one said anything, assuming that she was transparent. Mr. Guo was scolding fiercely in her heart, but she still had to say it shamelessly. "Sister, you are busy. Have you finished planting the land at home? Do you need help from our family?" Old Mrs. Lee didn't even raise her eyelids and just said, "No need." Mr. Guo was choked to death and really wanted to turn around and leave. But thinking about the 5 acres of land that was still vacant at home, I still continued to please. "Sister, well, there are many people in your family, so it is convenient to work. Unlike our family, we only have 2 sons. Dazu is not in good health, and Lefo has some work in the city. The two daughters-in-law are useless, and it's just me who is suffering from old bones after all the calculations. Since you can't work at home, why do you come here to help my family? Mrs. Lee had a broom in her hand and was sweeping the yard. She was rude when she opened her mouth, showing no mercy at all. Mrs. Guo was so angry that she secretly gritted her teeth. Old Mrs. Lee never even glanced at her. Now that her granddaughter can crawl, she always sneaks out. There should be no stones in the yard, in case my granddaughter stuffs them in her mouth. Also, it won't work even if it's on your knees. A child with such delicate skin and tender flesh. Ms. Guo was cold for a long time, and the dust brought up by the broom was even more choking. She finally lost her temper. Sister, your family has finished planting the land, and you don't need any animals anymore. Give your mules to our family to plow the land tomorrow. Dazu doesn't know how to lead animals, so he asked Lao Si to follow him to help. A total of 5 acres of land were planted in one day. No, our mules have been tired for half a month and need to rest in the past few days. You have to use animals and buy them yourself. If you can't afford them, you will use your shoulders to pull the plow stick like the people in the village. If other people don't have mules at home, it's not like they have finished planting. What Mrs. Lee dislikes the most is the Lu family's laziness. There are more than a dozen families in the village, including the 2 sons of the Lu family, which has the largest population. As a result, the Lu family just lived the poorest life possible. The shabby thatched houses are about to collapse, the autumn harvest grain is rotten in the ground, and the spring planting is also delayed. Such a family, regardless of their grudges, cannot move around. Otherwise, if you help once, you will rely on the Lee family in the future. They get the benefits and the Lee family contributes, but in the end they may end up complaining. Simply, reject it more thoroughly from the beginning. In the final analysis, the only relative of the Lu family is her younger brother, who has also passed away now. The rest of them have no family ties at all. Mr. Guo was completely annoyed after being rejected over and over again. Sister, you are so heartless, even if you don't like me, I am an outsider. But Dazu and Lefo are your nephews, so you are willing to let your nephews suffer. The old lady rolled her eyes and looked at Mr. Guo like she was a fool. Lu Jenner is dead, and our 2 families are no longer related. You don't cultivate your own land. What's the point of expecting our family to do so? The 4th child is still my biological son. Isn't a biological son closer than a nephew? There is no reason to let your own son be tired and your nephew idle. Get out of here. She poked the dust hard with her hand a few times, and then returned to the yard. An old mattress was spread under the eaves of the corridor. Jiyan sat on it, nibbling fruits and watching the excitement. At this moment, he wanted to applaud his grandma. Seeing that he could not take advantage, Mr. Guo completely exploded and started yelling. You are a family of evil-hearted people, and you are not afraid that Lu Jenner will come back to settle the score with you. The aunt doesn't protect her nephew, but she knows how to bully our family, the orphans and the widowed mother. Woohoo, I can't live anymore, I can't survive this life. Lu Jenner, come back and take a look. Some villagers heard the commotion and came over to watch the fun. They laughed and joined in the fun. Aunt Lu is really interesting. There are 2 sons and 2 daughters-in-law at home, but they are all too lazy to move when working. I think of relatives who are beyond reach. I can see that my son is closer to me, and I can't bear to be tired. Ms. Guo became more and more excited. What do you know? Dazu is not in good health, and Lefo is making a fortune in the city. Want to get rich? Then hire someone with money. It doesn't take much, just 100 cents a day, and I'll help your family grow it. Why don't you go and grab it? Mrs. Guo was still scolding, but Li Laozi had already found a hatchet and wanted to open the courtyard door. She was so frightened that she turned around and ran away. The soft ones are afraid of the hard ones, the hard ones are afraid of the horizontal ones, and the horizontal ones are afraid of life-threatening consequences. She wanted to rely on the Lee family to work, but she didn't want to risk her life here. Mrs. Lee hugged her granddaughter and pretended she didn't see her son trying to scare Mrs. Guo. But I still couldn't help but sigh. As long as Mr. Guo can be a human being and live a good life with his nephew. As an aunt, how could she not help? But this family is really stuck in a mess. Besides, Mrs. Guo ran all the way home and was so angry that she slammed the door and smashed the basin. Lu Taizu snored while sleeping on the Kong and paid no attention to him. Suniang and Chun Hong heard this and could only ask a few questions. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 62. Chapter 62. Prepare for a rainy day and collect food. Guo was scolding her so hard that she still couldn't get rid of it. Chun Hong was afraid of mentioning her man's lack of work again, so she said, "Mom, I really can't think of it. If the Lee family doesn't want to help, then they won't help. The land has no legs, it's just there in the autumn. Let's help harvest a few acres. It's not like everything is covered." Mr. Guo and Suniang's eyes lit up when they heard this. This is a good idea. The Lee family's 30 acres of land are scattered in several places. It would be too easy to secretly collect some of it. But even if the plan is good, the land at home still needs to be planted. The next day, the family was in a panic, and Mr. Guo also threw his son and daughter-in-law into the fields. After 3 days of dilly-dallying, he had planted 2 acres of land, and with 3 acres left, Lu Taizu could no longer move. Must leave it to Lu Lefu. Lu Lefu is hanging out in the city. Ever since the Wu siblings moved to the city, he has found a place to stay and has not been back for 10 days and a half. Why did he come back to farm? As a result, the Lu family's 3 acres of land were now empty. But Qingshui village has few people and plenty of land. In the past few years, too many people died, the village fell into decline, and everyone despised the bad luck. Even if someone buys land, they will not come here. So, it is not too surprising that a few acres of empty land are left uncultivated. The young and old of the Li family ate dumplings, and Jiaran went to school. Seeing that nothing happened at home, Li Laosi also went to with Ji Yi. Li Laosan had nothing to do. He went to the city to find some odd jobs doing brickwork. Occasionally he could come back with 30 or 50 cash a day. Tao Hongying also got busy, taking Zhao Yuru and Jia Huan to the banquet. She is cheerful, hard-working, and the food she cooks is delicious. As soon as you take over a business, all the relatives and friends of the family will be interested in it. Whenever something happens at home, I always come to Qingshui village. After the spring planting, it is a rare month of leisure, and it is also the peak season for weddings in various families. So much so that, at the end of the month, Tao Hongying actually earned 18 taels of wages. Mrs. Li was so happy that she wished she could support her daughter-in-law. Jiyan took the opportunity to stop breastfeeding herself, so that her mother would not have to worry about coming back to breastfeed her while she was busy outside. She is now a grown-up child, and can go on all fours inside and outside the house. Sometimes, she can still walk upright for a few steps when her hands are being held. Even though these are just a few steps, it means that she has broken away from the ranks of reptiles. It is simply gratifying. Mrs. Li is at home, and her main tasks are cooking and taking care of her granddaughter. Big pot rice is easy to make. It is nothing more than sorghum rice, millet porridge, pancakes, and stews. Occasionally Tao Hongying would bring back meat dishes and add a meal to everyone. The rest of the time, she concentrated on thinking about food for her granddaughter. Soak the red dates until soft and peel them, then add them to the millet porridge and boil them into a whole body. They are fragrant and sweet. Egg custard, 2 bowls a day, is absolutely indispensable. Thin noodles are added with eggs and chopped green onions, and baked into soft pancakes. Stir-fry the minced cabbage and meat and add it to the white rice porridge. Occasionally there is no one at home, so I clean and chop the fish and shrimp that my granddaughter brings out. In short, the grandfather and grandson cooperate with each other tacitly. Everything is for the sake of growing up quickly and for good news and good health. At first Tao Hongying was reluctant to let go. The 8-month-old child was weaned a little early. She felt relieved when she saw that her daughter did not cling to her, that her porridge and custard tasted delicious, that she was white and fat, and that her face was rosy. It's May in a blink of an eye, and tender seedlings are growing in every field. The mountains and forests are also completely dressed in green robes. The women and children in the village would go up the mountain when they had nothing to do. Dig some wild vegetables back, wash them and eat them with dipping sauce. Be more particular about it and add some sweet, sour, and salt to make it cold. These are good things to put on the table and serve as food. It seems that everything is developing for the better. The world is full of vitality, just waiting for the harvest in autumn, but the old people feel a little uneasy. Including the village chief, they have to go to the fields every day. Because, from the new year to now, not a single drop of rain has fallen. The moisture in the fields now depends entirely on melted winter snow. But the weather is getting hotter and hotter, and if it doesn't rain, the fields will be dry. Not only that, the river outside the village has gradually become shallower. The generous villagers persuaded everyone with a smile. The big river flows from the south, and rice is grown in the south. It needs a lot of water, and maybe it will be diverted. This statement appeased many people. But the old people still felt something was wrong, but they couldn't say much. Mrs. Lee carries her granddaughter on her back and goes for a walk by the river every day. As a pretense, Jian took 2 duck eggs from the courtyard and asked Grandma to carry them back in her lapel pockets. After all, no one at home picks up duck eggs, but they eat salted duck eggs every now and then. It's a bit weird no matter how you think about it. Jian also frowned, feeling a little worried. She has seen the crop seedlings in her own field. They are the same as those in the village, neither good nor bad. But compared with the 5 acres of land in the space, it is not enough. This year may not be a good year after all. As the days go by, more and more people feel that something is wrong. Because the heat is so scary. At this time in previous years, you would still have to wear outer clothes, but this year the naughty boys have gone barebacked. The solar term seemed to have advanced by more than a month, and yet not a drop of rain has fallen. That night, Mrs. Lee lay next to her granddaughter, sighing while shaking her cattail leaf fan. Fu Niur, do you think this year is not good? Ah! Jian pulled her belly band hot and felt irritable. If you grow too fat, you can see your shortcomings at this time. Her legs and groin were covered with beads of sweat. I already have eczema and it is itchy and uncomfortable. Old Mrs. Lee rarely noticed that her granddaughter was feeling uncomfortable and continued to worry. What should we do? We have so much land at home. If there is a drought, it will be a bad thing if we can't harvest food. Jian wanted to say that he should hurry up and stock up on food at home. But she couldn't speak and could only take out a handful of sorghum from the space. This is the same seed that was stolen originally, only a little bit is left. The old lady was afraid of pricking her granddaughter, so she quickly got up and cleaned up. Finally, after holding the handful of sorghum and thinking about it, she took out the money box again. There are more people in the family, more food to eat, and more money to make. 20 taels are set aside for emergency use, and the rest that can be used are just over 50 taels. Start stocking up on grain at this time, at least enough to feed the family for a year, and be prepared for no harvest in the autumn. Hold on until next spring, when the wild vegetables come out, and then you can breathe a sigh of relief. The Lee family consists of more than a dozen people, old and young, plus 6 old men next door. Even if you have 2 meals a day, you will be 70% full, and you will need more than 2,000 kilograms of grain. These 50 taels are barely enough to buy the cheapest sorghum. Jiyan couldn't bear to let Grandma worry, so she quickly squeezed into her arms, hoping that Grandma wouldn't have to worry because she still had her as a strong backing. Sure enough, the old lady held her granddaughter in her arms, barely feeling at ease. With a precious granddaughter here, we can't let the family starve to death at a critical moment, right? But you still have to make the plans that need to be made, and you can't just rely on your children. Early on the next morning, after dinner, Mrs. Li called out to Lao Er and Lao San, as well as Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru. I think the weather is bad, and I'm afraid there will be a severe drought this year. Everyone in the village has food rations left over from last year, but our family doesn't have any. I think I'd better go to the city to buy more food and prepare it back. Li Lao Er and Li Lao San both nodded. It doesn't look good to us if there is a drought, at least the family won't be hungry. Old Mrs. Li took out the silver. This is the majority of our family's money. Let's buy food. I'll buy 20 caddies of white rice for Funiur. The rest will be whatever is cheap and whatever is most hungry. Li Lao Er took the silver and went out with Li Lao San to harness the chariot. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru were also flustered and said quickly, "Mom, let's dig wild vegetables in the mountains, dry them and put them in the sun, then we can put them into porridge to satisfy our hunger." "Okay, let's go, don't go too deep into the forest." While the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were talking, Li Lao Er and Li Lao San in the courtyard were already shouting in surprise, "Mom, the fourth child is back." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 63. Chapter 63. 1,000 miles away. Old Mrs. Li quickly took her granddaughter out, and sure enough, Mr. Li came in from the courtyard in a dusty state. His clothes were extremely dirty, his hair was a mess, and his lips were chapped and peeled. "This is much more embarrassing than when I went out before." Tao Hongying took the luggage distressedly and asked, "Is it very hard to be this time? Why are you so tired?" Li Laosi waved his hand, "Bring me 2 pots of herbal tea, I'm coming back quickly." Tao Hongying knew something was wrong when she heard this, so she quickly threw her luggage and went to the kitchen. Jiyan also felt sorry for her father's suffering, but she was more curious about what was going on in the south. She didn't bother to hug him, and just rested on her grandma's shoulder, honest and well-behaved. Li Laosi entered the house and was surrounded by everyone. He drank 2 pots of herbal tea before he said, "Mom, it's not good in the south this time. We went out for 1,000 miles, and it never rained in all the prefectures and counties along the way. I heard that in some places, there hasn't been any rain or snow since the grain harvest last year. The cultivation was done reluctantly before, but now there are no seedlings at all." Everyone looked ugly when they heard this. If only the drought was near Kyoto, it would be fine. After all, it is at the feet of the emperor, and the Tianwu dynasty covers a huge area. Those southern states have a good harvest, so just send some food over. But it seems that the south has too much to take care of. It is even drier than near Kyoto. It is already foreseeable that the production will be cut off this year. I heard it never rained here at home. Li Laosi sighed and said that he had thought of a way. "Mom, our family needs to buy food quickly. We have just settled down and we don't have the food foundation we had last year. We can't be afraid of spending money and we need to stock up on food quickly." Li Laoer nodded and quickly responded, "My mother gave me the money, and we are going to the city to buy food." Li Laosi was pleasantly surprised. He originally thought he would have to persuade him a bit more. After all, he didn't have much money at home, so it would be too difficult to spend it all to buy food. Fortunately, I am sensible. Old Mrs. Lee touched Ji Yin's little hair, took a deep breath, and suppressed the panic in her heart. You hurry up and buy food. Don't be afraid to spend money. Buy as much as you can. Remember to buy it in separate places and bring it back quietly after dark. I know, don't worry, mother. The strongest brother is back, and Li Lao Er and Li Lao San are more confident. Li Lao Er hitched a mule cart and left the village. Li Lao San and Li Lao Si went around from the foot of the mountain behind. Try to avoid people's eyes, otherwise the villagers will be suspicious if the three brothers are out. It's not that the Li family plans to live alone and refuses to share the news. Every family has food in stock, which is almost enough to last until autumn. Secondly, it's hard to say about the weather. What if everyone goes to buy food and then it rains? Then the Li family's good intentions may very well turn into a donkey's liver and lungs. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru went up the mountain together with their family, happy family. Pork ear vegetables, small roots of garlic, mother-in-law diced, lijanthus, in short, everything that is edible must be picked and taken home. Pickle them to make pickles, or dry them and store them. They can fill your stomach at critical moments. Ji Yin is not optimistic about such preparations, because both pickles and dried vegetables require water to eat. The drought is really extreme. The most lacking thing is water. But she couldn't persuade him, and she couldn't persuade him. She could only pretend to sleep, and then went into the small courtyard to work hard. The various rape seeds that Mrs. Lee had begged for earlier came in handy now. Plant wherever there is room in the fields. Especially some side dishes, you can eat them after a month. Of course, what Ji Yin pays most attention to is the well in the front yard. When I first returned to my hometown, the village also used electricity to pump water. But she just likes the pressure well at home and insists on not modifying it. Now it has become a life-saving straw. Pour a ladle of water in, quickly press the handle, and soon the well water will gush out. But the good news is still small, and I will be exhausted after a while. That little lamb without its mother has now grown into a half-grown sheep. It came and bleated, waving its tail happily, and drank the sweet and refreshing well water. Good news. I added some water to the 4 little pigs, chickens, ducks, and geese, and I felt much more at ease. The small courtyard is her greatest source of confidence. Not seeking wealth, but just seeking to keep the family fed and clothed. The family was worried about it so much that they finally got back to the mule cart when it was dark. Sacks of sorghum rice and millet were carried from the car, along with 50 kilograms of white rice and 50 kilograms of fine flour. This was bought by Li Laosi for his daughter with extra money. On the way to escort, he hunted several times and exchanged the skins for some silver. Originally, I wanted to buy some gifts for my family, but I really missed home, so I told Lu that I would rush back early. Ji Yi is still in the team, so he is not worried about the lack of manpower in the team. The wing that was temporarily used as a warehouse was half filled in one go. The young and old of the Li family stood at the door, looking at the sacks and cloth bags. No one said anything, but there was no panic in their eyes. There is food at home and there is no panic in the heart. Keep your mouth shut, and don't tell anyone that we have food. Think about the food that was taken away on the way to escape the famine. People are very hungry, and anything can happen. Old Mrs. Lee whispered to her family members, especially Jia and Jia 11. Children have no control over their mouths and are prone to showing off to others. Jia An's family was happy to see everyone looking at them, and quickly covered her mouth, as if she would kill them without saying a word. This made everyone laugh. Ji Yin wanted to put all the food into the small space courtyard, but she was too small to move around to get the food. Moreover, the family members are watching Gui Kang. If they can't find it, they will also be suspicious. Within 2 days, Ji Yi finally came back. He took 3 taels of silver, which was the wages for this trip. Li Laosi came back early, but Lu Biatu still gave him 2 liang. Because Ji Yi is young, he has always received half of his salary, 1 tael. The uncle and nephew are in the agency, and now everyone knows it. Anyone who works as a wants to take them with them, because they are really helpful. There is work to be done on the road, so there is no need to worry. Especially this time, there were bandits who wanted to rob without opening their eyes, and Li Laosi was the first to find out. He shot an arrow and pierced the hat of the bandit leader, frightening all the bandits so that they did not dare to take a step forward. The convoy passed smoothly without any use of knife or wasted money on the way. For this reason, Captain Lu made a special trip and brought 2 boxes of snacks and a piece of meat for Mrs. Li, and bought a pack of sesame candies for Jiyan. Unavoidable, Tao Hongying cooked food and wine and had a meal. As the days pass, it gets hotter and hotter. The sun is steaming and baking the earth, like a hot pot, and everyone is an ant on the hot pot. The village chief went back and forth to the fields, and when he saw the crop seedlings were wilting and lowering their heads, he also got angry and yelled at the villagers. "Hurry up and water the crops, we can't wait any longer." Everyone in the village had a sad face. Carrying water and watering the fields was the most tiring job. Each family originally had fewer laborers, and some were from remnant soldiers, so it was difficult for them to farm. Now that such a big job has been added, it's really killing me. Those who were lucky enough wanted to wait a few more days, but the Li family acted quickly. The family's mule cart was hitched, and all the barrels and basins were moved out. Mules and carts hauled water, and Mrs. Li and her children were responsible for watering. Brothers Li and Lao brought their family members and friends to enjoy the occasion, and they also had to carry water. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 64. Chapter 64, Disaster is imminent, the only way to save yourself is to save yourself. The 10 acres of land near my home are fetched from the well at home, and the fields far away are fetched from the river. People in every village obviously couldn't wait any longer and went to the river to get water. The river, which was originally much shallower, now has a large area of riverbed exposed, which makes the naughty boys in the village very happy. Each one carried a bucket, caught fish, and collected river mussels, wishing they could not go home even after dark. Jia likes to be sensible and has been helping water the fields. Old Mrs. Li felt sorry for her grandsons, so she asked them to play for a while. This good news is very exciting. There are dozens of duck and goose eggs stored in the small yard, and the family has not eaten fish for a long time. The main thing is that with the help of her 2 brothers, she can add more fry to her fish pond. Mrs. Li bent down to water the water, then stood up to scoop the water. She was so tired that she felt dizzy. At this time, her granddaughter was making a fuss to follow her to watch the fun, so she simply gave herself a break and followed her grandson slowly. There were people in the village who were busy carrying water for watering, so they greeted her when they saw her. "Auntie, we are so envious of you. We also have a cart and water at home, which saves us a lot of effort, and we also have many children and grandchildren at this time, we really see the benefits." Mrs. Li waved her hands with a grimace. "You have only seen this, why don't you take a look at my 30 acres of land? Even if there are more than a dozen people, we can't water it all." Everyone thought about it and felt balanced, so they hurried to work. Orange Mrs. Li took her grandchildren to the river. Jiaxi and Jian ran to catch small fish. Jian secretly directed grandma to pick up duck and goose eggs. A pile of green-skinned duck eggs and a pile of white goose eggs as big as fists. Who wouldn't like it? Even the melancholy old lady Li smiled. Jia and Jiaxi also cheered, they caught a lot of small fish. Jian quickly struggled over there, and when she got close, her brother wasn't paying attention. She poured the small fish into the fish pond in the small courtyard and replaced them with 2 large grass carps. Jia and Jiaxi turned around and found that his mouth was about to burst with surprise. Old Mrs. Li patted the eggs with her grandson, put the duck and goose eggs into the bucket, and shouted. What are you looking at? Thanks to your sister, there will be fish to eat tonight. Jia and Jiaxi closed her mouth tightly, as if she opened it, the fish would run away. The two of them were walking very fast carrying the buckets, but there were too many people on the road, so they were still seen. Naturally, everyone was greedy, so the fields stopped being watered. People of all ages flocked to the river to look for duck eggs and catch fish. It's a pity that there are not many big and small fish, let alone duck eggs. That night, the Li family steamed sorghum rice and stewed grass carp and tofu. Jiyan took a bowl of egg custard, mixed it with a few pieces of snow-white fish meat, and ate it happily. Several old men from the Zhao family next door also got a pottery pot full of stewed fish. This is a rare and delicious dish. Uncle Zhao also took out half a jar of strong wine that had been stored for a long time. A few old brothers, each with half a bowl of wine and fish, ate and drank happily. They have not been idle these days. They couldn't do the heavy work of carrying water, but they cut grass and watered the mules, watered the fields, chopped firewood at home, and swept the yard. But even so, they still felt guilty and always felt that they had taken advantage of the Li family. The grain harvested in last autumn was taken to the Li family when we were building a team together. Taken together, it is only 400 kilograms, which is not enough to feed them for several months. It's not enough to be like this. Every now and then, we eat big fish and meat. Especially in this weather, if there is no harvest in autumn, should Li Jiabai be allowed to raise them? Uncle Zhao was the first to speak. Otherwise, let's call the village chief and go to the Li family to talk. Let's take the land back this year. In this way, if there is no harvest in the autumn, the Li family won't have to support us in vain. Otherwise, the Li family will really suffer. Yes, the Li family is very smart. When the time comes, the fields will not produce enough revenue and we will not be hungry, so we will have to use money to buy food. How much money does that cost? No matter how rich our family is, there is no reason to support us old people forever. Other old men also agreed one after another. They are also action people. After dinner, they called the village chief to come over because they were drunk. The village chief and the Li family were both a little confused, wondering what happened to the old men. As a result, the old men talked about taking back their fields, and the Li family immediately understood their plan. This is a drought. I am afraid that there will be no harvest in autumn. Old Mrs. Li shook her head at that time. No, old brothers, think about it. If there is a big harvest in autumn, besides your rations, there will be a lot left. We have sold money at home, will you come and ask for it? Of course not, the old men all stared. Is that something people do? Your family has worked farming, and the money earned is of course yours. We have agreed before that we only need food rations as long as we are not hungry, we don't want the rest. That's it. Mrs. Li smiled and wiped her granddaughter's saliva away. Our family cultivates the land and whether the harvest is good or not is our family's business. Wherever we can make money, we will take care of your food rations. If we don't make money, we won't care. That's not the truth. This is different, I'm afraid there will be no harvest this year. Several old men became anxious. I'm afraid your family has to buy food, and it would be a big loss to support a few of us immortals. It's not a loss, Uncle Zhao Li Lao quickly comforted him. If you have an old man in your family, it's like having a treasure that other families can't expect. Besides, the fourth child mentioned a severe drought when he came back from the south, and our family has been prepared for it. Old Mrs. Li also nodded, yes, don't worry. They didn't speak clearly, but the village chief and the old men all understood. A few people breathed a long sigh of relief. The Li family had stocked up on grains in advance to be prepared for no more harvest. The village chief thought for a while and said, That's it for the time being. If there are real difficulties in Chushi, your family must talk about it. Of course, we are all one family, eating from the same pot. If we want to be full, we will eat together, and if we are hungry, we will naturally find a solution together. The words family used by Mrs. Lee made several old men smile even more. They looked at each other and stopped insisting on withdrawing the fields. From now on, the remaining 10 years of their lives will be left to the Lee family. When something really happens, they can risk their lives to protect the Lee family. We are all a family. The village chief was thinking about each family, so he said goodbye and walked around, urging those who didn't have much food left at home to go to the city to buy food, and urging those who were lazy and waiting for rain to hurry up and fetch water to save their crops. At this time, there is no hope for anyone except self-rescue. On the second day, someone actually went to the city to sell grain, but came back empty-handed. The price of food in the city is half as high as it was half a month ago. Everyone felt anxious after hearing this, and the bad premonition became stronger and stronger. The number of people going up the mountain suddenly increased. As long as you see green and can put it into your mouth without being poisoned to death, you will pick it back. Temporarily pad your stomach, save food, and you can survive for a few more days. There was an old man in the fields, kowtowing and praying. Ask God for rain to save the crops. It's a pity that the sun is shining brightly in the sky, and there are no clouds at all. On the contrary, the wells of the high-lying households in the village ran out of water. 1 family, 2 families, 3 families. Half a month later, most of the wells in the village were out of water. Looking from a distance, the mountains and forests also have a somewhat withered yellow color. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 65. Chapter 65. Please call me a manual water dispenser. All the crops in the fields have withered. Even those that had been watered before were not much better. The big river outside the village has completely dried up, and there is no small stream of water to be found. The children went to the bottom of the river to dig for clams in the bright sun, and 2 of them fainted from the sun. It's hard to say, but the village is in a state of chaos again. Jian only wore a small belly band with knee-length shorts underneath. The back and calves are exposed. But she was still hot, wishing she could stick out her tongue like a puppy to dissipate heat. The family was very busy during this period, and no one paid much attention to her. She secretly practiced walking. Although she fell a lot, she could barely walk for a while. At 10 months old, she walked. She was not too early for a baby, but it was definitely not too late. At this time, she wanted to take a look at the well while her family was taking a nap. But as soon as we got down the steps, the skin of the meat was almost cooked due to the sun. She could only turn to the kitchen, crawl across the threshold on hands and feet, and finally touch the water tank, and then start pouring water from the space. It took a full quarter of an hour for the big water tank at home to be filled. Before she could rest, the old lady came looking for her. "Oh, Funiur, why did you come here?" Mrs. Lee picked up her granddaughter and quickly scooped up water to wash her hands and feet. The cold well water made Jian feel much better and she started to yawn. Just as Mrs. Lee was about to take her granddaughter back to the house, old man Zhao's screams rang out in the courtyard. "It's broken, and our well is dry too." Everyone in the Lee family ran out one after another when they heard the noise. Sure enough, there was only a shallow layer of water at the bottom of the well. It is impossible to throw a bucket in to fetch water. Perhaps it will be done completely tomorrow. Mrs. Lee also wanted to go over and take a look, but suddenly her heart trembled and she turned back to look. There was only half a tank left in the water tank last night. After using it all morning, it should be empty, but now it is almost full. And the well in the courtyard has dried up. Could it be? She looked down at her sleeping granddaughter and subconsciously tightened her arms. She didn't know whether to be ecstatic or worried. What kind of precious granddaughter did the Lee family get? Simply omnipotent. Good news: when I woke up, it was already dusk. After having eaten and drank enough, everyone in the Lee family was about to go to sleep, but she was in great spirits. Remembering that the well at home was dry, she planned to go and have a look. After all, she couldn't always fill the water tank at home out of thin air. The best way to cover up is to store water in wells. She got off the Kong smoothly and reached the door again. The next moment, he was suddenly picked up. Mrs. Lee nodded her granddaughter's forehead. "Where do you want to sneak away again?" Ji-Yan giggled and pointed outside. Old Mrs. Lee sighed, kissed her chubby cheek, and then walked quietly to the yard. Sure enough, Ji-Yan ran all the way to the well, and his little hand rested on the edge of the well and stopped moving. The old lady didn't know what her granddaughter was going to do, so she lay down at the mouth of the well to take a closer look. Under the moonlight, a line of water flowed down the well wall along the granddaughter's little hand. There is already a lot of water at the bottom of the well. She tried her best not to scream in surprise, and stepped forward to carefully hug her granddaughter. Let her granddaughter lie in her arms, which is safer and less tiring. Ji-Yan felt so comfortable. He hugged Grandma's thigh and continued to drain. I don't know how long it took, but Mrs. Lee couldn't hear the sound of water anymore. Looking down, I saw that my granddaughter was already asleep and drooling. She was so distressed that she didn't even care to see what was going on in the well, so she hurriedly took her granddaughter back to the house. Early in the morning of the second day, just after dawn, Li Lao-san shouted in surprise in the courtyard. "Oh, there is water in our well again." Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru took advantage of the coolness of the morning and got up early to cook. After hearing this, he rushed over quickly. The bright well water was not much, only half the height of the previous day, but it made everyone smile. Hungry is uncomfortable, but it is equally painful if there is no water on a hot day. It's better now, there is water at home again. By chance, a villager came to Li's house to borrow a mule cart to enter the city. He was also happy to see water in Li's well. I didn't even need to borrow a car anymore. I went home to get buckets of water and came here to get 2 buckets. It's hard for the Li family to refuse to give it to them. This is not gold or silver. What's more, we are all from the same village, how can we see everyone thirsty? The news spread to 10 and hundreds, and soon the whole village knew that there was water in the Li family's well. Even the village chief came to visit, and people from nearby families even came to fetch water. Seeing this, Li Laosi quickly filled up his water tank. Just like that, they were fighting for it, and within half an hour, the well was dry again. Everyone was a little embarrassed and thanked Mrs. Lee one after another. Finally, they gathered together and became even more worried. Mrs. Lee held her little granddaughter in her arms and used a cattail leaf fan to shield her from the sun. Her heart was beating like a drum. Some villagers suggested, "Village chief, should we hide in the mountains?" The village chief pointed to the mountains and forests in the distance and sighed. "It's not easy in the mountains, there's no place to hide, and the wild animals in the mountains may not be able to find water." Everyone sighed. What should we do? The crops can't be saved, and people will die of thirst. Some women began to sob, and the men raised their heads and sighed. The village chief was afraid that the Li family would be unlucky, so he kicked people out. Go home and cry? There is no one to blame for this natural disaster. Everyone left with their heads and heads drooping, leaving the Li family sighing. Tao Hongying and the others cooked and ate, while Ji-Yan went to the fields to earn money. Old Mrs. Lee could only hug her granddaughter, cover her with a cattail leaf fan and walk around the ground. The Lee family's crops are watered the most, but the weather is hot and consumes a lot of money. The crops are still with drooping leaves, and they are greener than other people's homes. But only a few, no more. Still need to water. Ji-Yan made up his mind to continue delivering water to the well in the afternoon. But after dinner, the sun was too strong. No matter how hard she struggled, no one in her family allowed her to go out. Having no choice but to wait until dusk, she took her grandma to the well. Old Mrs. Lee guessed for a long time before she understood what her granddaughter meant. She felt very complicated. On the one hand, she was worried that the crops would die due to drought and there would be no harvest. On the other hand, she was worried about her granddaughter, who was so worried about the family when she was less than 1 year old. After all, I don't know where the water was found. What if it's very far away? Will my granddaughter be exhausted if she is so young? The result was hesitation, and the well was half full again. She could only ask her sons to quickly hit the cart and pull water from the fields while it was dark. The moon is shining brightly, but you can see the water clearly. The family didn't understand why there was water in the well again, but they couldn't care less at this time. An extra scoop of water given to the crops will last half a month longer. Maybe it will rain in half a month. Even if the production is reduced due to long-term drought, half of the harvest will be enough to feed the whole family. One trip after another, Daking was so tired at dawn, and the whole family was so sleepy that they could fall asleep at any time. As for the good news, I am already lying in Grandma's arms and snoring. She was really tired. She had been weighed down in the space for a whole night. The villagers got up early and came to Lee's house to try their luck. They were all happy when they saw water in the well. Looking at the Lee family's yard and the mule cart, I guessed that they were watering the fields again at night. I was really envious and admired them. This work is too tiring and may even be useless. The Lee family is so willing to endure hardships just for a little hope. But everyone has given up long ago, and they are really ashamed of themselves. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 66. Chapter 66. Just because this is my well. From this day on, almost everyone in the Lee family, young and old, changed their schedules. Ji-Yan slept completely during the day, and kept guarding the mouth of the well to drain water at night. The old lady naturally had to accompany her, and the whole family was constantly carrying water. It was boring and hard work, but no one in the Lee family complained. Compared to the time outside the Great Wall, when the whole family fled from famine, they were always in danger of being beheaded by barbarians. Compared to the despair that night at the dock, this kind of hard work is just hard work, but my heart is at ease. They are struggling for life and doing their best. Village people come to Lee's house to fetch water every day and silently watch the Lee family doing useless work. There are also people who want to fetch water to irrigate the fields, but they don't have a car at home, so they can only water one ridge after carrying water all night. Just thinking about it, I gave up instantly. As the days pass, most of the mountains and forests have turned yellow. If you stand in the sun and pant, you will be burned. The river outside the village began to dry up, and the wells in each village were dry. Those who had relatives in the city began to flee to the city. Those who had no relatives in the city took their families and drove them farther into the mountains. There are also many people who have defected to Qingshui village, not to mention that they previously despised this village as being unlucky. The reason is the well in the Lee family. Although it often dries up, it always fills up quickly. Every family is not greedy. If they have a bucket a day, the children and the elderly will not be thirsty. If they can cook a pot of porridge, they will not starve to death. But when there are too many people, there will always be some trouble. Originally there were more than a dozen households in the village, and they all had to queue up to get water. There are more than 20 people in the outdoor village, and they are always quarreling over water. The village chief couldn't stand it, so he came to Li's house every day to preside over the distribution. There are people from other villages who not only want the family to drink, but also take care of the family's livestock. So, I just want to get 2 more buckets of water. Of course everyone disagrees, there is only so much water. Whoever fills 2 more buckets might end up with no more water. And the wells don't know when they will have water again, there is no pattern at all. The people from other villages who were blocked were unhappy and shouted, "Aren't you bullying others? You refused to let me get 2 more buckets of water." Then the Li family even hauled a whole truck of water to water the crops. "Why didn't you say anything? Why?" The courtyard suddenly fell silent because of these words. Orange Mrs. Li was holding her granddaughter and sitting under the shade of the eaves. Jiyan has lost a lot of weight due to fatigue these days, and her face is also a little pale. Old Mrs. Li was already distressed and unable to help. When she heard such words, she became angry. "Why? Just because this is my family's well. At this time, I let you fetch water out of respect for the fellow villagers. I don't owe you anything. Our wells don't mean we draw water to irrigate the fields. It's just a matter of just pouring it in the yard and not letting you hit it. There's nothing wrong with it. Why, you still want to ask the government to arrest us? Have we broken the law? What a big face. The old lady is always smiling when she is in the village." The sudden cold-faced curse really surprised everyone. But soon, third Aunt Wu and second sister Zhang became supportive. "That is, I drink other people's water, but I still have to listen to you. Who are you, the county magistrate? Don't come and live in our village if you have the ability. I'll lend you a house and give you some water. You can't even help me like this, you're a white-eyed wolf." The man from the outside village was so scolded that his face turned red and his neck was thick. He wanted to leave but was reluctant to leave, so in the end he had to stand at the end of the queue. Everyone fetched water one by one, 1 bucket per person, which was barely enough. Just as everyone was walking out, they found themselves on a mountain path not far from Li's house. Suddenly there was a burst of smoke, and 3 or 4 large wild boars ran down, followed by Uncle Zhao and several old men, shouting loudly, "Kill them, they will harm our crops." It turned out that Uncle Zhao and the others couldn't help with watering at night, so they took the initiative to look after the fields. Working shifts during the day and night, for fear that wild beasts on the mountains would harm the crops. Unexpectedly, a wild boar really took a fancy to the Li family's land, and today they came together to beat the tusks as a sacrifice. Uncle Zhao and the others noticed him very quickly and knocked on the copper basin to drive him away. The wild boar was frightened and ran directly to the village. Everyone screamed in fear and ran away. How could they dare to confront the wild boar head-on? At this moment, Li Laosi jumped out of the courtyard wall. He was holding a wooden stick as thick as his arm in his hand, and he was shining it on the head of the leading wild boar. The big wild boar screamed, its brains exploded, and it fell directly to the ground. Ji squeezed out from the gate and was a step too slow. He became anxious and jumped on the back of a wild boar. He drew out his dagger and plunged it into the boar's eye. The wild boar suddenly went blind, became furious, and went on a rampage. But Ji pulled out the dagger and wiped his neck again. Seeing this, the village chief called on the villagers to quickly help pen the remaining 2 smaller wild boars. Li Laosi also took action, and struck down 2 sticks again, completely quiet. Pig blood and pig brains were splashed all over him, looking extremely fierce. The man from the outside village who was scolded for making noise earlier was still a little angry. At this time, he simply shrunk his neck and honestly did not dare to breathe. Don't mess with the Li family. The sons and grandsons of the Li family are too fierce. His head is not as hard as that of a wild boar. Everyone was greatly frightened, but now they were overjoyed when they saw the fat pigs all over the ground. "Ha ha, there is pork to eat. That's right, this is really meat delivered to your door. Fortunately, Laosi and Ji are at home, otherwise it would be really bad. It looks like it's quite dry on the mountain, and the wild boars have come down. Whatever it is, we have pork to eat. The village chief came forward to take a look and saw that several wild boars were really dead. He thought for a while and then said to Mrs. Lee, "Sister, what do you think we should do with this wild boar?" Old Mrs. Lee thought about it a few times and had an idea. It is not good to keep the 4 wild boars in the family and not give them to the villagers at all. But even after they were divided, she couldn't bear to part with them. Simply, she said. The 2 big ones were sent to the city by the 4th child to be sold. After getting the money, they were given to my GRN to study. The remaining 2 small ones have more tender meat. The village chief decided to give everyone a share, so that they all have a bit of meat. Satisfy the kids' cravings. The village chief thought so too and quickly responded. "Okay, then I'll thank our family on behalf of everyone." Everyone was not greedy, and they all loudly thanked him. "Thank you, ma'am." "Thank you, aunt." Soon, the mule cart was hitched, and Li Lao and Li Laosi went into the city to sell wild boars. The other 2 heads were skinned and disemboweled directly at the door of Li's house without being carried away. At present, there are only more than 30 households in the village including foreign residents. 2 small wild boars weigh more than 300 kilograms together. Remove the head, hoof, and internal organs, and get 200 kilograms of meat. For foreign residents, 3 jins per family and 8 jins for the home village. The remaining 30 kilograms were given to the Li family. If you have children or the elderly at home, you can also divide the picked bones into several pieces and use them to make soup. As for diving into the water, the village chief decided to leave it to the Li family. Tao Hongying is good at her craftsmanship. After stewing it, everyone can share another bowl. It doesn't matter how much it is, just follow the fragrance in your mouth. A storm, when wild boars rushed into the village, was not a trivial matter, but in Qingshui village it was resolved like this, and every household was happy. No one is jealous of how much money the Li family's 2 big wild boars were sold for. The wild boars came down the mountain because they wanted to destroy the Li family's crops, and it was the Li family who killed all the wild boars. The Li family just kept all the wild boars, and no one was in a position to say a word. What's more, now they have divided so much. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 67. Chapter 67, My intestines are so wet. At noon on this day, every household ate pork. Even if the wild boar firewood costs a ladle of water, no one will feel sorry for it. Li Lao and Li Laosi brought wild boars into the city. Wild boars were not as expensive as domestic pigs, but the butcher shop still took them away. Moreover, the 2 pigs were given 8 taels of silver, 1 tael more than usual. Not for anything else, because it's rare. There is a severe drought this year. There is no harvest and no one has enough to eat. Who will raise pigs? In the county town, some butcher shops have run out of stock. Some people wandered around the villages outside the county town and bought back piglets that each family could not afford to raise. A pig weighing 70 to 80 pounds would be good. The Li family sent these 2 pigs, both of which were nearly 300 kilograms. You can boil a lot of lard. Li Lao and Li Laosi were also very satisfied, and walked around the city after leaving the butcher shop. When the drought started, they rarely entered the city. Look now, the streets are as depressed as ever. There was a long queue in front of the grain store. Everyone looked anxious and looked inside the grain store with their feet up. On the wooden board in front of the grain store, it is written that the price of grain has more than tripled. Another place with a large number of people is the 4 deep wells dug when the city was built. There is 1 hole each in the southeast and northwest of the county. Because the digging is deep, water can be barely obtained during such a drought. The county government specially sent officials to take care of it. Each household could only take half a bucket, and they had to endure whether it was enough. The brothers were thinking about Grn and made a special trip to the academy. Grn quickly ran to the back door and was very happy to see his father and uncle. Grn is a little thin, and his lips don't look thirsty. Li Lauer was a little relieved and asked carefully. It turns out that the dean of the college saw the misery of a severe drought when he was studying abroad when he was young. When the college was built, 100 taels of silver were spent on digging a deep well, which was even deeper than the 4 wells in the city. These days, the college's water use is not affected much. Grn was also worried about his family, so he asked, "Dad, please discuss this with Grandma. Let's move our family into the city, rent a yard nearby, and I will bring water home every day. It may not be enough, but at least we won't be too thirsty." Li Lauer was pleased that his son was filial and understanding. He whispered about the water in the well at home, and Grn's eyes turned red with joy. It's great, I'm afraid in my dreams that there will be no water at home. Grandma always says that Funiur is blessed, and our family will all benefit from it. Look now, Grandma was right. Our home is located on a high ground in the village, but our well has water. Li Laosi was pleased to hear that Funiu was his daughter, so he directly gave the money from the wild boar to Grn. At this time, stay on your own. If you have a hard time in the academy, go home as soon as possible. I know, fourth uncle. Grn didn't refuse. After chatting for a few more words, Li Lao and Li Lao Si left the city and went home. Not to mention that the two brothers were rushing home, but in the courtyard in the north of the city, Wu Kuiwa was setting up a pot to cook sorghum rice porridge, and she was sweating profusely from the heat. Finally, the porridge was ready, and she drank it all as soon as she turned her head. Wu Ergu was holding a big bowl and purring. On one side stood Lu Lefu and Guo. The two women also had a large bowl each, and they were drinking and disgusting. I say, Kuiwa, you can't put an extra handful of rice in when you make porridge. Look at how well the porridge is cooked, you can even see people's shadows. Mr. Guo's curled lips were so angry that he looked so unhappy. Wu Kuiwa was so furious that she couldn't bear it anymore, so she snatched Guo's bowl with her bare hands. Your family is so shameless. I have been here all day long since I moved into this yard. Is it easy for you to treat me as a hard worker to earn some food? I am so tired that I am half dead after a day, and I am jumping around like an animal. You think this porridge is too thin? Why are you here to eat? Why didn't you give me a bowl when you were making porridge secretly? Ms. Guo was so angry that she wanted to grab the porridge bowl back, but Wu Kuiwa drank up the porridge in one gulp. Ms. Guo pinched her waist and cursed, "You bitch, if I take a sip of your porridge, I'm giving you face. I'm your aunt, and the younger generation should be filial to their elders. We've come to you, why don't you care? I won't eat you either. You are so concerned about a mouthful of porridge. When our family becomes prosperous, you will not be able to find a way to flatter me." Wu Kuiwa didn't show any weakness and immediately scolded her back. "When our family defected to you, didn't you care about it? Our two families have been divorced a long time ago. What kind of aunt? Stop coming here to pack big cloves of garlic. If you don't eat your own food, you come here every day to take advantage. If I had known this, I would have beaten you. I won't help you rent a house even if you die." She has 10,000 regrets, and her intestines are blue and purple. Earlier, her brother sold her rations, but she really had no choice but to wash an extra basin of clothes every day, coaxing the old lady of the host family to treat her better and willing to give her the washed clothes to give away. It was also her good luck that she met a wealthy family and got a legitimate son, and the government gave her a reward. She took the opportunity to kowtow and say happy words, and finally got a piece of silver from the nobleman to buy some food. Before she could have a full meal, the drought started. There is a shortage of water in the city, so the job of washing clothes is naturally gone. Although I don't have to work, the old lady of the house doesn't give me any food. She could only find a way to survive on her own, taking on any job, even helping pour night fragrance from house to house. Finally enough to survive, but also to guard against his younger brother stealing a handful from time to time. Then, the Lu family followed Lu Lefu and came over. She was stunned by the good words of the Lu family, so she helped the old lady of the host family and told her that she had rented 2 empty rooms in this yard, and this trouble would start endlessly. In the past, Lu Lefu came to eat, but now it's better, the whole family is staring at her rice pot. As long as she cooks, everyone in the Lu family, young and old, will eat it. It's not okay to scold or argue. If she hadn't hid her tightly, she would have even carried the grain bag away. She missed the time she was in Qingshui village very much. With her husband's family protecting her and the evil spirit Li Laosi, the Lu family didn't even dare to pass by the gate. At this time, it's time to bully her. Mrs. Guo wiped her mouth, regretting that she had not finished the half bowl of porridge. Every bite she eats here means that there is less rice at home. She didn't care if someone pointed at her nose. You are an unfilial thing. No wonder your husband's family doesn't want you. You scold you like this when I eat a mouthful of porridge. Humph, I eat you because I look up to you. She sluggishly went back to the house without forgetting to drop the next sentence. Just be content, I'm afraid those people in the village will die of thirst. It's good that your mother-in-law and her family didn't come. If you mess with me again, I will ask Suniang to go back and deliver the message. It depends on what you will do when the time comes. Not to mention food, there is no place to sleep. As expected, Wu Kuiwa immediately shut up. Although she didn't know what the village was like, she felt bad no matter what she thought about it. Ms. Guo, don't be a crow's mouth. They are all here. What will she do? Do you still have to work to support the Li family? But thinking about it this way, she felt relieved. The Li family probably didn't expect to kick her out, but instead saved her. Actually, her worries were in vain. Not only did the Li family have water to drink, they were even eating meat. The wild boar meat has been stewed for nearly 2 hours and is already overcooked. Not to mention the young and old in the family, even Jiyan had a bowl of meat porridge and ate it deliciously. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 68. Chapter 68, Get Rich Early. Mrs. Li was worried about her grandson, so she gave instructions. Hong Ying, let's fry some meat sauce tonight, let's bake some pancakes tomorrow and ask my second brother to deliver them to Jiaran. This kid doesn't know how to be frugal in college, let him satisfy his craving too. Okay, Mom, don't worry, I will make arrangements. Tao Hongying took off her handkerchief and wiped her daughter's mouth. The mouth of the bowl is a little bigger, and the good news tastes so sweet that I almost bury my face in the bowl. Everyone looked at it funny, laughing and eating at the same time. Zhao Yuru said, I made a basin of water and gave Fu Niu a bath at night. It was too hot today and the child suffered. We want it too, Jiaxi and Jian also shouted. The old lady knocked them with chopsticks, laughing and cursing. What are you yelling about? You have to hide in the house even if you wash yourself. People can't drink water for you, but you can still take a bath. Have fun secretly, and be careful of others being jealous. I know, Grandma. Jiaxi Jian quickly agreed. Jian ate half a bowl of porridge, and her belly felt round. Finally, he lay down on the kong and fell asleep again. The old lady feels distressed, and she is the only one who knows it best at home. The granddaughter is so young, but she puts water at the well every night. Even adults can't bear it, let alone a child who is less than 1 year old. Hey, let it rain quickly. If it continues like this, I really can't bear it. Li Laosi didn't want my mother to get angry, so he said, don't worry about it, mother. We'll catch up on sleep during the day and water the water at night, so we're not tired at all. Li Lao and others also nodded. Mom, we are not tired. Old Mrs. Li sighed. Her son and grandson were obviously much darker and thinner, how could they not be tired? She is also happy that her children and grandchildren are filial and sensible, and they have had hard work. Then just hold on for a few more days after all, it's a pity to have such good crops. Yes, our family is the only one left now fortunately, we still have well water otherwise, we would have no chance to think of this. Everyone responded, maybe they had really gained strength after eating pork. That night, everyone in the Li family watered 3 ridges of land. Jiyan finished draining the water and saw Daking panting from exhaustion, so she pulled her grandma over and pulled out a lot of vegetables from the space. Daking was so happy that he puffed and ate. Old Mrs. Li was distressed and wanted to the food from her mouth, so Jiyan took out a lot more. Spinach, coriander, Chinese cabbage, rapeseed, and green onions are all green and crisp. There are even cucumbers, peas, and vegetable melons. Old Mrs. Li was so happy that she even wanted to take away the kitchen. I didn't want to, but my granddaughter took more and more. She suddenly reacted and asked tentatively. Fu Niu, there are so many vegetables that we can't finish at home. Do you think we should ask your second uncle to take them to the city and sell them? Jiyan nodded vigorously, that was her plan. Things that are scarce are valuable. At this time in previous years, vegetables would be the least valuable. But nowadays it is difficult to drink water, so vegetables have become a treasure. Send it to the city, and those wealthy families will definitely be willing to pay for it. It just so happened that the people who came back to collect water this time were Li Lao and Li Lao Si. Orange Mrs. Li pulled her 2 sons and quickly twisted the straw rope. He quickly bundled all the vegetables and put them into wicker baskets. While stacking, sprinkle water at the same time. Finally, I put it on the donkey cart and filled it up for most of it. Mrs. Li whispered to her son. You go to the city overnight, and enter the city as soon as the city gate opens. Ask the big families, if you can sell them for money, it will be better. If you meet the bully, don't worry too much. The most important thing is to come back safely, do you understand? I understand, Mother Li Lao and Li Lao Si, one is steady and the other is brave. At such a time, it is most appropriate to make such speculative money. Both brothers knew that this dish was weird, but neither one said anything. Fu Niu is now 1 year old. Ever since she fled the desert, there have been all sorts of strange things happening in her family, but now they are no longer strange. Li Lao and Li Lao Si quietly drove the mule cart and set off. Mrs. Li carried Fu Niu to the fields and called Tao Hongying back. The old men next door were also helping, but they didn't know what was going on and kept asking questions. Why didn't you water the water tonight, but the well is dry again? Old Mrs. Li climbed up the ladder, it looks like there's not much water left. Let's leave some for everyone. We'll see tomorrow night and decide whether to water it or not. Several old men sighed, you guys are so kind-hearted. Yes, it's too late to take care of your own family at this time, and you actually have to take care of the whole village. Everyone went back while talking. As for the good news, I was already sleeping on Grandma's back and drooling. It's so tiring, I'm really short of manpower sometimes. For natural disasters, we must do our best and obey the destiny. Now I can only persevere and ask God to be merciful and let the rain fall early. Besides, Li Lao and Li Lao Si waited for the city gate to open, paid 10 cents and entered the city smoothly. The two of them were unfamiliar with the big families in the city. After thinking about it, Li Lao Si went to the agency to ask for help from the chief Lu. Lu Biatu is warm-hearted and a master of family ethics, so of course he will not refuse. But he is familiar with the masters of each house, but not the purchasing manager. So he called the agency's purchaser for help. This is a young man in his 20s, surnamed Joe. He has a smiling face and is very easygoing. Hearing the reason for the Lee family's visit and seeing the vegetables in the car, he couldn't help but rub his hands in excitement. During this period, every household in the city was complaining. Ordinary people lack food and water, but wealthy families lack enjoyment. The fruits are gone, the vegetables are gone, and there is not enough water. This day is simply unbearable. Each shop is very unlucky when purchasing, and is scolded by the master all day long. Nowadays, the Lee family's cart of vegetables is like meat in a crow's mouth. As long as it is exposed, it will definitely be robbed. Brother Lee, I'll tell you the truth, this car of yours must be easy to sell, but I want to ask first, do you still have it at home? Is it a one-time deal, or can it be delivered every day in the future? The difference is not just a few pennies. That's dozens of taels. You have to make it clear so that I can make arrangements for you. Li Lao Er and Li Lao Si looked at each other and felt that they came out a little hastily. They should ask my mother carefully. But it's not too late, Li Lao Er said. Brother Joe, the well in our house is deep, so there is still water now. The vegetables are saved from the mouth by the family, thinking of selling them to make some money for their children to study. There are still some at home, but after all, there are also many relatives and friends. I don't know if I can sell them all. In this case, I will ask the fourth child to go back. Ask for clarification and we can discuss it? Okay, this is best. Manager Joe became even more excited when he heard that he had caught a big fish. If it works well, he will also benefit from it. Li Laosi hired a carriage and left. Lu Laosi invited Li Laoer and Manager Joe to go home for breakfast. Li Laoer was generous and thoughtful and took 2 bundles of side dishes and 3 cucumbers. Mrs. Lu cooked it and put it on the table. Everyone was happy to eat. Li Laosi ran all the way home. People in the village were fetching water. They were all surprised to see him coming back covered in travel. He didn't have time to say hello, so he pulled my mother into the house. Mrs. Lee didn't know if there would be any vegetables in the future, so both of her mother-in-law looked at the good news. Ji-Yun woke up and had a full meal. She was idle at this time. She heard that it was profitable, so how could she let it go? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 69. Chapter 69, Do things in a high profile and behave in a low profile. She danced her little hands excitedly, releasing more than a dozen rabbits for a while, and picking a large plate of cherries for a while. Rabbits are raised in the backyard. If they can be sold, it will reduce the burden on the small yard. As for the cherries, they originally grew in the corner of the yard and were half dead. I didn't take the good news seriously, but unexpectedly, it sprouted and bloomed this year, and now the tree is full of cherries. Looks pretty good, tastes sweet and sour. At this time, taking advantage of the novelty, I think I can sell it for some money. Old Mrs. Lee asked cautiously when she saw that there were no vegetables. Fu Niu, are there any vegetables left? Can we sell them every day in the future? Ji-Yun nodded, pointed at Cherry and frowned. Because the cherries are too small, it is really difficult to pick them. Mrs. Lee was very happy and asked, are there as many vegetables as there are today? The old lady still nodded after hearing the good news, and the old lady felt confident. Li Laosi was also happy. Although he didn't understand his daughter as well as his mother, he still understood her to a certain extent. Mom, I'll go back quickly. Second brother and Lu Biatu are still waiting. Okay, remember to be careful when you come back. When people asked, I said I went to help the agency. Mrs. Lee gave careful instructions. Someone in the city asks where the vegetables come from. Just say that there is water in the well at home and the vegetable garden is not dead. You can also say that when you go to the mountains in spring, you plant some near the deep mountain spring. Li Laozi nodded repeatedly, but he couldn't help but think about these words. But at times like this, it's good to have something to eat. Who can break the casserole and ask the truth? He came back in a hurry and left quickly. The villagers were curious and asked Mrs. Lee while waiting in line to fetch water. Auntie, why is the fourth child running so fast? Is there something going on at home? No, it was the agency that called him for help. Natural disasters are severe, and man-made disasters are also serious. Maybe there are bandits somewhere, I don't understand. Old Mrs. Lee waved her hands and spoke vaguely. The villagers immediately started thinking and envied Li Laozi for making a lot of money every time he went out as an escort. Now it seems that this money is not so easy to get. Bandits are all desperados, and it is simply too dangerous to deal with them. Although they can't make that kind of money, they don't have to work hard either. Thinking about it this way, many people feel balanced. Old Mrs. Lee saw everyone's expressions in her eyes, but she wasn't angry at all. Human nature is like this. No matter how good we get along, we can't help but compare ourselves to each other. When there is comparison, jealousy arises. Always, I hope you live a good life, but you cannot live a better life than me. Even though the Lee family tries their best to keep a low profile, they are still too conspicuous among the villagers. But of course she is not willing to gather her children and grandchildren and eat and die like the people in the village. So, act in a low profile and be a high profile person. Jiyan was lying in Grandma's arms. I didn't know that Grandma had so many thoughts on her mind. She was anxious to tidy up the vegetable patch in the small courtyard. A simple calculation, even if it rains immediately tomorrow, it will be half a month before everyone can plant vegetables. In other words, the family is robbing money. The golden period for selling vegetables at home is only half a month. Every effort is rewarded. The seeds she sown in the fields can now be harvested. But most of them are spinach, Chinese cabbage, rapeseed and the like. In the vegetable garden of the small courtyard, there are not many cucumbers, eggplants, and beans. Now I feel a little regretful. If I had known, it would be better to allocate 1 or 2 acres of land to grow vegetables. But you can't be too greedy. The things we have in front of us, sold successfully, are enough for the family to spend for a year. In the county town, Li Lao and manager Joe came to see Li Laozi. Hearing that the Li family could deliver so many vegetables and even fresh cherries every day, Manager Joe was very happy and quickly made some calculations. He was about to take Li Lao and Li Lao Si to find someone to sell vegetables, but Li Lao Si stopped him. Brother Joe, our family is an ordinary farmer. Taking out vegetables at this time is too eye-catching. If someone comes to our house to buy them forcibly, our family may not be able to withstand it. How about I ask you to help me sell these vegetables from now on? Our family gives us a commission of 10% of the vegetable money. How do you feel? Manager Joe was stunned for a moment, his mind turned, and his eyes lit up. He was originally helping to pull strings, but now he can benefit himself, which is of course even better. But he couldn't agree so easily, as if he valued money more. So he shook his head repeatedly and tried his best to refuse. Lu Biatu looks rough and has a lot of eyes. At this time, he can see that Manager Joe is hindered by his kindness. Seeing that the Li brothers were also sincere in giving in, he slapped Manager Joe twice and complained. We are all brothers, so what are you talking about? Don't tell me that you don't leave a little money for yourself when doing shopping on weekdays. Brother Li is sincere, so don't take advantage of Jiao. It's serious business to sell the vegetables quickly. Manager Joe's back hurt when he was patted, so he responded with a grimace. Okay, okay, I agree. He rubbed his back and told Li Lao and Li Lao Si. I will transport this cart of vegetables first. Don't worry, I will keep it and return it in an hour. Okay, thank you for your hard work, Brother Joe. Li Lao and Li Lao Si were not worried. After all, Chief Lu was there, and Manager Joe did not dare to the things away. After sending Guanxi Zhou off, Lu Baiatu and Li Laosi made plans. The Lu family has nothing else, but they are fully equipped with weapons. The two competed in archery skills and fist and kick competitions. Li Lao cheered from time to time as he watched. It was the first time he admired his younger brother so much. I usually only see him going up the mountain to look for pheasants and rabbits, but I didn't expect him to be so capable. It's no wonder that Mr. Lu is very protective of their family. Having a good person like his younger brother to help him must be of great benefit to the bodyguard bureau. Manager Joe meant what he said and rushed back in less than an hour. His face was full of smiles, and the corners of his mouth were almost hanging from his ears. Second brother Li, fourth brother, are so happy. Everyone heard that he changed his name and guessed that the vegetables must be selling well. That's the truth. Manager Joe drove the carriage to the door of a familiar tea house. There was a lack of water in the city, and the tea house was half dead and about to close. Steward Joe gave a handful of copper coins to the two boys and sent them to invite people. Juniang County is not a big place, so in less than 2/4 of an hour, 5 or 6 familiar stewards came over. These people are all buyers of wealthy families in the city. We meet occasionally on weekdays. They chat and drink tea together and exchange information, so they become familiar with each other. Manager Joe is the least conspicuous among them, because the agency is far less wealthy than the other families. If he hadn't said he had vegetables in his hand just now, these people wouldn't have been able to arrive so quickly. When I saw with my own eyes the green vegetables, the juicy cucumbers and eggplants, the green cowpeas and oil beans. Everyone is excited and their trip was not in vain. These things used to be delivered to the government every day from the farm. But with such a severe drought, the village's water supply has become a problem, and vegetables have not been delivered a few times since the beginning of spring. Nowadays, the house relies on dried vegetables and fungus to support the family. The young master loses his temper and refuses to eat, and the old masters have blisters on their mouths. 3 meals a day is almost an embarrassment to the cooks. If you bring the vegetables back today, the master will be happy. It is secondary for them to receive rewards. They have a name in front of their master. The more important thing is that they will benefit a lot in the future. Half a cart of vegetables was divided up almost in the blink of an eye, and was even considered too little. But everyone was satisfied when they heard that there was still tomorrow. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 70. Chapter 70. Another alternative of robbing the rich and giving to the poor. A bundle of vegetables as thick as a bowl was sold for 50 cents. The Li family brought 4 small baskets and sold them for a total of 4 liang. Cucumbers, eggplants, etc. are sold individually for 50 cents each. Cowpeas and snap beans were originally weighed by kilograms, but people were impatient to weigh them. It is simply simpler, and a cowpea with a wrist as thick as a cowpea will be given 200 wen. Grabbing the green beans with one hand and scooping them out with both hands, no matter how much it is, it's still 200 coins. Sold like this, half a cart of vegetables was worth 12 and 50 cents. Li Lao and Li Lao Si were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. This is not a green vegetable, it is simply a golden vegetable. You know, these things were cheap in previous years, and if they were sold together for 100 cents, it was pretty good. Otherwise, wouldn't farmers be able to make a fortune just by growing vegetables? Rather than running out of food at home, I would rather leave it to wither in the vegetable garden than have anyone send it to the city. Now, thanks to the impact of the drought, profits have actually increased 100 times. Haha, this is a great event. Lubayatu is really happy for the Lee family. Your family is just lucky. People cry for father and mother when there is a drought. Your family can actually make a windfall. Li Lao Er and Li Lao Si also felt happy in their hearts, but they still had to be polite. Thanks to the well at home. Yes, fortunately there is water, otherwise we wouldn't be able to grow vegetables. Of course, Brother Joe is very capable. If we sold it, we would definitely lose half of it. Steward Joe was stunned by the praise and said quickly. No, no, our vegetables are still rare. There aren't even any insect holes on the leaves. They look so good. Li Lauer was anxious to go home to announce the good news, so he had to give money to Manager Joe. Manager Joe waved his hands repeatedly. Second brother, don't worry, won't we have to sell a section later? Let's figure it out together in the end. That's all right, I'll keep the accounts when I get back. Brother, you should also keep them. Now that you're done with this business, come to our house for a drink. After a few more pleasantries, Li Lao Er and Li Lao Si left the office and hurried home happily. Old Mrs. Li has been restless all morning, looking at the door from time to time. She couldn't bear to let her granddaughter bask in the sun, so she put her granddaughter under the eaves and ran back and forth by herself. Jian was made to giggle by Grandma from time to time. If Dad and second uncle don't come back, Grandma will step on a ditch in the yard. Jian and Jiaxi hid behind the pillars and secretly looked at Grandma. What's wrong with Grandma? My second uncle just went to town. Did Grandma buy something? It's possible, I guess it's snacks. I guess it's sesame candy. Hearing the good news, he couldn't stop laughing. These two brothers are foodies, so the appraisal is complete. She smiled like this, which reminded Jiaxi and Jian. Normally, Grandma is too strict with her sister and rarely lets them help her. If she wants to touch her face, she will be kicked out. This is a good opportunity to take advantage of Grandma's absence. The two of them came close to their sister and made funny faces. Jian spat out 2 saliva bubbles and struggled to get up. Her original intention was to let her brother carry her and go to the door to have a look, but Jiaxi and Jian misunderstood. The two of them thought their sister was about to walk, so each of them took her hand and led her forward happily. Jian had no choice but to start walking. With a small body that is not yet 1 year old, her legs are limp and cannot exert much strength. Fortunately, my hands were held together, so I could still maintain balance. The 3 brothers and sisters walked around under the eaves of the corridor twice, and they were all very happy. My sister is so awesome. Yes, yes, that's the way to go. At this time, Mrs. Li suddenly shouted happily, I'm finally back. Jian and Jiaxi turned around to look, jumped up and cheered, second uncle is back. The two of them dropped their hands and ran towards the gate. Jian had no support. He was flustered for a moment, his feet were confused, and he fell straight to the ground. She tried to hold back the tears, but it was too painful. Wow, wow. Tao Hongying heard the noise and came out of the kitchen, ran forward and hugged her daughter. Looking down, I saw that my daughter's upper lip was cut and bleeding. Don't cry, Fu Niu, don't cry, look at me, please blow me off. Tao Hongying panicked, and Zhao Yuru, who came later, was also frightened. Why did you fall so hard? She quickly ran into the house to get the powder. Jian had a fever earlier, which scared the whole family to death. Later he went to the city and bought a lot of backup medicine. This medicinal powder was brought back by Li Laosi from the agency because he was afraid that his daughter might fall while learning to walk unexpectedly. It really came in handy today. Old Mrs. Li ran back in 2 steps. Seeing that her granddaughter was injured, she raised her hand and slapped herself. Why are you so worried about money that you put your granddaughter under the eaves? Mom, don't be like this. It's normal for children to stumble. Tao Hongying endured her heartache and gave her daughter medicine. The medicinal powder was easy to use, the wound was not big, and the bleeding stopped quickly. Happy News stopped crying, but Jian and Jiaxi were frightened and went crazy. They just left their sister behind, causing her to get hurt. The two of them rubbed oil on their feet and ran directly to the yard next door. Li Laoer and Li Laoxi led the mule cart into the yard and found that Jian was injured. The two of them had no time to unload the car, so they came to see the good news. Everyone gathered around the good news and entered the house. Jian was anxious about how much money he had earned, so he ran to Li Laoxi and extended his hand. Li Laoxi quickly hugged his daughter and said with a smile, "Fu Niu is a money addict. Does she know that daddy has money here?" Jian's little chubby hand touched the trousers on her father's shoulders. She wanted to smile, but her lips hurt. Old Mrs. Li felt very distressed and quickly urged her son, "Hurry up and give the money to Fu Niu. Once she's happy, she won't feel any pain anymore." Li Laoxi turned his robe upside down, and a pile of copper coins and broken silver fell out. Everyone was so shocked that their mouths opened wide. There seemed to be 7 or 8 taels. Is it too much? Tao Hongying helped bundle vegetables last night. She knew how much, so she was even more surprised. Old Mrs. Li was also happy. She first grabbed a piece of silver and stuffed it into her granddaughter's hand. Sure enough, Jian smiled widely and her saliva dripped. "Look, silver is more useful than powder." Everyone laughed, and then asked about entering the city. Li Laoer said it carefully, and he was also excited at the end. "In the future, we can also deliver vegetables, and Manager Joe will be responsible for selling them." "That's good. Since we don't show up at home, we naturally have less talk about right and wrong. As for giving him 10%, that's right. It's not easy for people to run errands to find a buyer." Mrs. Li affirmed her son's approach, which made both Li Laoer and Li Laosi feel relieved. After all, there is a lot of silver involved. If you sell it for 10 taels a day, you can give Guanzhou 1 tael to moisten his hands. After 10.5 months, it will be more than a dozen taels. Fortunately, the old lady is sensible and has never let her children and grandchildren down. There are often villagers coming and going at home, and Mrs. Li is afraid that her money will be exposed. She quickly collected the money and sent it into the back room. Sure enough, after a while, Uncle Zhao from next door let Jian and Jiaxi over. The two boys cried till they had runny noses and tears. Especially when they looked at Jian's lips, they cried even louder. What else does Mrs. Li not know? She snorted and cursed. "You just ran away when you made a mistake. Are you really promising? How do you know you are back at this time? Do you expect your grandpa Zhao to intercede and support you?" Jia and Jiaxi cried so much that she hiccuped, "We didn't mean it." End of this chapter.